Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing a question that has to do with the Buu saga. More specifically, the one who revived Majin Buu from his ball that he was in captivity for millions of years. That would have to be Babidi, the son of Bibidi, who was initially said to be the creator of, but then, according to later interviews with Toriyama, the summoner of Majin Buu. And the question of, why didn't Babidi take over King Cold and Frieza, the two most powerful, naturally strong beings in the universe at the time of the story? Well, I'm going to be breaking that down in depth, talking about how Babidi was able to gather people to him, different species of evil beings, in order to create the most powerful forces that he could, and why, for whatever reason, he may have chosen not to take over, well, let's say, the two most powerful evil beings that we knew of. But before I begin, if you're new here, or if you just are a longtime fan who has not yet done so, consider subscribing and enable notifications. That way, whenever my channel is not promoted to you on your homepage or on your recommended by YouTube, you'll still be able to see my channel and all my content in your subscriptions feed and on my notifications that should hopefully be sent to your email. If you never get those, well, maybe it's doing the opposite. Let's just say it's opposite day. Either way, let's take a closer look at the subject and find out. And I'm going to go into, well, King Cold and Frieza. Now, when we initially were introduced to Frieza, the much smaller of the two here, of the father and son duo, he was said to be the most powerful being in the universe. The being that even made King Kai, the strongest god that we knew of at the time, the head of the Northern Galaxy, or Quadrant eventually it would be said, of the universe from the afterlife, shiver in fear and tell Goku and the others not to approach him. We saw just how strong he was on Namek, when Goku had to become not only the most powerful base Saiyan of all time that we had known at that point, and then Broly came along, but also, of course, a legendary Super Saiyan on top of that, multiplying his power by, according to the guides, 50 times with this new form, in order to defeat Frieza at his 100%. His 100% power was 120 million, according to the guides, and King Kai's, for reference, was about 3,000. So that goes to show you just how much more powerful this character was, about 40,000 times stronger than the most powerful god we were introduced to at the time in the story. And he would only be defeated by Goku, but get even stronger still, because Frieza was, well, revived by, well, not revived, but saved and kind of revived in the first ever Fukkatsu no F as Mecha Frieza, Fukkatsu no MF. Wait a second. And during that time, what ended up happening was that he came back stronger than ever with these enhancements. He even says that right here, that even though King Cold wanted to just blow up the small planet of the Earth, as they call it, he says, no, that would not leave me satisfied. I want to show him something, my powered up form. So in the anime and the manga, it's confirmed that Frieza is even stronger than he was on Namek when Goku defeated him. How much stronger? Well, we don't really know. It's arguable that he still was not as strong as this Goku, because the fact that, well, he gets sliced and diced pretty easily by Trunks, and there's a lot of discussions about just the comparative nature of their powers at that time. Either way, the fact of the matter is that Frieza and his father were incredibly evil. They had no problem wiping out species, ruling and dominating over universes, even when Trunks had killed Frieza. King Cold, as we'll go to see momentarily, just kind of praises the guy for it. He says, wow, you killed my son very easily. You're something that's truly outstanding. He even then offers him, just like Frieza offered Goku to become his right-hand man, he offered for Trunks to basically become his new son in place of his last one. This guy kind of is very cold to his family now, isn't he, when it comes to when it comes to this narrative, and kind of getting over people quickly. But of course, he still didn't really stand much of a chance against Trunks even when he used his sword, because, well, that sword is only as powerful as the wielder. And that wielder, well, he pretty easily killed him and vaporized him. Now, with regard to King Cold's power, just how strong was he? Well, in the anime, they make the argument, because it's said by characters such as Tien, that he may be even more powerful than his son, Frieza, at least based upon the power they were sensing at the time. In the manga, we have Krillin, for example, going next to Gohan, and them saying that this other power that's with him feels like Frieza, that it's very similar in the same way. They have giant ki, and maybe it's even greater than his son's. Of course, they do go on to say, when Yamcha is remarking about just how strong he is, that Gohan points out Frieza can get much stronger than that. So it's always up in the air. It's also up in the air whether or not King Cold can actually transform like Frieza. But either way, these are the two most naturally powerful fighters in the universe who were only able to be surpassed by the Super Saiyans, androids, and so on. And I will talk more about the androids in a future video as well relating to this topic. Either way, the fact of the matter is that Babidi, well, he could have realistically taken these characters over, right? And made them even stronger. Just look at the characters that Babidi took over first when we are introduced to him. We're told by Supreme Kai, the new most powerful god in the universe, until, of course, they introduce another one, the god of destruction, who's more powerful than him, but linked to him, that Babidi has the ability to take over the most powerful evil beings in the universe, as he says right here. It's not that Babidi himself is so strong, but his magic allows him to manipulate evil beings through the evil in their heart, and then basically enslave them. Make it to where they bend to his will. And we see the strength of the fighters on display here in terms of comparative to Frieza. Like, for example, the first one we have that we're introduced to is the mighty, incredibly powerful Pui Pui. And we see just how strong Pui Pui is when, well, Vegeta goes to fight him one-on-one. He gets a little bit of one-on-one with the most powerful being in the universe, obviously. And, well, he's able to easily defeat him when he fights him. Now, a lot of people in the past have kind of wondered the power of characters like Pui Pui. Later on, we also see the power of somebody that Goku fights, who would end up being Yakan, the monster of darkness, let's say, the one who eats light. And whether or not these characters are comparable to Frieza in terms of his overall strength. Some people like to compare Pui Pui, because he looks somewhat like Frieza's third form, to the power of Frieza, and say that, oh, he's equivalent, and that Vegeta and the other Saiyans at this point are even stronger than Frieza in their base form. I'm not so sure about that. I talked about that in a video you guys can see in the top right corner about just how strong Pui Pui really is. The fact of the matter is, I'm not so sure that he's anywhere near as powerful as Frieza. I wouldn't say so. I also don't think that Yakan is necessarily as powerful as Frieza either, because the fact that, well, he might be stronger than Goku's base form because the fact that, Goku becomes a Super Saiyan to fight him, and also Gohan and the others suggest teaming up to fight Yakan so that Goku won't have to become a Super Saiyan, which again implies that he would need to, even in the Buu Saga at this point. And then, of course, we have the strength of Dabura, who is compared to Cell, as we see right here in this scene. If I can actually find it, that'd be really helpful. Where we are told that, You know what? I'll just go ahead. This is Laughing Stock Media. We often kind of have to skip ahead and figure this stuff out. That he is comparable to Cell. Of course, I've done videos in the top right corner about which version of Cell this means. Goku's comparing him to Super Perfect. He's not just comparing him to regular Perfect. And then when Gohan is fighting him as a Super Saiyan 2, also did a video about that in the top right corner. Goku, after seeing him use this magical blast here, says that he's even stronger than he thought he would be, which again, he was comparing him to Cell, so he's stronger than Cell. But why are these characters so powerful in the first place? Well, because the fact that Babidi did something that he does here with Vegeta. When he takes them over as Majin, or he gives them the Majin mark, he also releases their hidden powers, their dormant powers, like Guru did on Namek, for example, the Grand Elder, and somewhat similar to what the Supreme Kai of 15 generations ago did, the Elder Supreme Kai did to Gohan when he released his dormant powers past their limits even more than what we see here. But basically, this is the same thing that we saw that Guru did on Namek to Vegeta. It makes him even more powerful to where he's able to match up to Goku as base, Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan 2. And he did the same thing here as well to Dabura, to Pui Pui, for as little as that seemed to have helped. And also to, drum roll, the character that Goku fought of Yakan. Even though we don't, we see the M down there actually. So, it would seem that Babidi made them even more powerful. But what about Frieza, for example? Frieza, well, his power, this is him when he's never trained a day in his life, 120 million. Then, as Mecha Frieza, he's even stronger than that. King Cold, we have no idea if he's ever really trained either. There's implications when he's talking to Goku that maybe they sparred a little bit and stuff like that. But we saw in Dragon Ball Super just how strong Frieza became after he trained for just 4 months with Tagoma, beating him up over and over and torturing him every day and even getting a brand new form. Imagine if Majin Frieza had all of his potential unlocked, just how powerful he would be. Would he become Golden or Black Frieza immediately the second that Babidi unleashes his hidden power like he did for Majin Vegeta? That's a question worth wondering. Same thing with King Cold. If he's even stronger than Frieza and he can transform and Babidi brings out his hidden potential, well, then it's kind of easy to suggest that these two would easily stomp Trunks, Goku, and everyone else, maybe even if they win the Time Chamber, and maybe they got God Ki and Super Saiyan Blue, all that stuff, depending upon if we're using Dragon Ball manga logic and Dragon Ball Super logic. At the very least, if that happened in the story, maybe Toriyama would have had them caught up to, the strength of the characters at the time, if they, somehow survived getting turned into Chop Suey by Trunks. Now, going back again to the power of the others here, with this in mind, I don't think that Pui Pui necessarily, or maybe even Yakan, was as strong as Frieza regularly. Dabura, of course, was more powerful than King Cold and Frieza combined, so it raised the question of if Babidi brings forth the most powerful evil fighters to him, then why didn't he, bring Frieza and King Cold to him? Supreme Kai knew exactly who Frieza was, as we could see here. He mentions his own power and the strength of all the other Kaioshin comparative to Frieza here as a measuring stick, saying that each of them could easily destroy him with a single blast. Again, that suggests here that they probably, like Pui Pui, for example, probably isn't as powerful as Frieza because, again, why would Toriyama and through him Supreme Kai be using the measuring stick of Frieza and Vegeta, not being like, or Goku here being like, wow, that's so strong, if Frieza is supposed to be like nothing by comparison at this point, if it's supposed to be meaningless, that the base Saiyans here are so much stronger than him, they easily kill somebody even stronger than him, or Goku's fighting against somebody stronger than him. Doesn't really make any sense. So that suggests that King Cold and Frieza are stronger probably than everyone up until Dabura. So again, why wouldn't Babidi have, taken them over? I mean, after all, how did Babidi even get in touch with them? Well, Toriyama said this in an interview you could see right here. In the same interview where he revealed information about Babidi's birth and things like, what the Majin mark means and things of that nature, we could see right here, somebody asked him a question with regard to how Babidi was able to get Dabura Pui Pui and the rest under his control. He said, summoning magic. Babidi searches out people with evil hearts through his magical power. Then he uses summoning magic to call them forth. What's more, he controls their hearts to turn them into loyal underlings. There are a few other mages throughout the vast universe, but Babidi's magic and his power is outstandingly strong. So we know that Frieza is definitely older than like Goku and Vegeta and so on, because of the fact that, he was in charge of their planet when they were both kids. In the Broly movie, for instance, we actually see when he's named the head of the planet by King Cold, who decides to, step down and give over his power to his son. I don't know what the heck's going on here. And so, as a result, it raises the whole question of why, Babidi, with all these decades of time and seeking out the most powerful fighters in the universe, didn't think to, take over King Cold and Frieza, especially when we find out after a little bit of time passes, after Pui Pui's killed, that they've been in operation together, him and Dabura, for 300 years at least, because they mentioned how they checked it back then, which is roughly around the time of the King Piccolo Wars. So Babidi has had centuries of looking throughout the universe, trying to find Buu and trying to find beings that they would need in order to, bring him back with their energy. They wouldn't think to bring the most powerful evil beings in the universe at the time under their control, especially considering they run a vast empire. Kind of strange. You think that would be incredibly helpful for Babidi to have an empire under his control, that he could siphon all the energy from everyone in that universal empire to bring back its universal destroyer, basically. That would seem like the perfect, most logical thing you could possibly imagine, even for a Dragon Ball villain who tends to be, not the most intelligent. So, with that being said, you have to wonder, for instance, what reasons could that have been? Maybe part of it has to come down to the great enemy of the Babidi family, let's say of Bibidi and Babidi, which is not Buu or Disney trying to sue, but rather the Supreme Kais. Maybe because the fact that Supreme Kai probably kept some degree of tabs on Frieza and would have been able to know, that he's such a high-profile individual in the universe, and if he was controlled by Babidi, he probably would have maybe figured that out relatively soon, especially him and his father, and they were making strides to bring back Buu and everything. Maybe he would have caught on, and considering how powerful he was, there's a chance he would have been able to actually do something to stop this. So maybe Babidi didn't want to take the risk. It's not like Babidi knew what Frieza's potential would have been anyway, so there's that consideration. Another thing is, too, that, going in line with this, Babidi was trying to stay in the shadows until it was too late for Supreme Kai to really do anything to stop him anyway, so that would have brought him out into the open immediately and, again, caused a threat. Furthermore, there's also the fact that, if we're taking Dragon Ball Super continuity, especially if we're talking about the strength of Frieza being brought out to the surface by Babidi, like what happened here with Vegeta, who else is familiar with and affiliates with Frieza? Beerus, the god of destruction, the destroyer, the Hakaishin. If, maybe Frieza was enslaved by Babidi at some point, maybe Beerus would have seen that as an issue and brought an end to Babidi and his plans earlier as well, especially considering his affiliation with the Supreme Kai. That's a little bit more iffy and up in the air, especially since we're kind of combining the modern Dragon Ball continuities, I have to say plural because of all that stuff, and then the prior continuity. But either way, a lot of this really does seem like an oversight. So with that being said, why exactly did Supreme Kai, or did Babidi, the opposite of Supreme Kai, not take over King Cold and Frieza. Let's get into that in my conclusion. So out of universe, you might be able to argue that this is kind of like a plot hole, that Toriyama, just because of the fact that he inserted Babidi and Majin Buu into the story afterward, he had come up with them not only after the Frieza saga, but after the Cell saga as well. He kind of just, didn't think about that aspect and didn't necessarily write something into the story. Maybe you can make an argument that somehow Babidi did not know about the Emperor of the Universe, which seems also like a huge stretch, or maybe he just didn't really see the value in taking over someone like Frieza because it would take him out into the opening before he had the chance to really truly unleash Buu when he was able to do it in the Buu saga. And also furthermore, that it would draw unnecessary attention to lead to his plans being foiled. And then also, well, he had Dabura on his side, who was way more powerful than Frieza and King Cold and the androids and Cell and everyone, combined, except for, the most powerful version of Cell, let's say, with all of them combined. Either way, fact of the matter is there's a lot of different possibilities open there. And I think that, maybe you can make an argument that's one above or all of the above when it comes to that. But let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Why do you think this is the case? Also, make sure to like, share, and subscribe and enable those notifications. And stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.